Well, ministers and leaders from around the world have now arrived at the COP23 climate talks in Bonn for the high-level segment of the UN climate conference. The Minister for the Environment and Energy, Josh Frydenberg, is at the conference representing Australia. We spoke about a new $6 million promise for blue carbon projects in the Pacific.
Well, certainly the Blue Carbon Initiative has been very warmly received by countries in our region, including Fiji, and we're working closely with Indonesia, New Zealand and other like-minded nations. See, the blue carbon ecosystem, which includes tidal marshes, seagrasses and mangroves, does perform an important role in preserving our climate. Those blue carbon ecosystems can sequester up to 4 times as much carbon as a land-based terrestrial forest. And Australia has about 10% of the world's mangroves and blue carbon, and therefore we're in a good position to help lead this effort. And we've announced new funding to allow countries to gather the data, to develop the accountability and transparent methods needed to ensure that blue carbon is accounted for in their nationally determined commitments under the Paris Agreement. So that's been warmly received, and it's just one of many initiatives that Australia is taking on the world stage to help our neighbours and to help our partners reduce their carbon footprint.
But it has been greeted with some scepticism, particularly from countries like Palau, from Kiribatis's former leader Anato Tong, who says Australia can't be taken seriously with its ongoing commitment to projects like Adani.
Well, as you know, when it comes to Australia's coal industry, it does perform an important role in terms of domestic energy production, and will do so for many years to come. And we are a large exporter of coal as well, and that creates tens of thousands of jobs across regional communities in our great country, including many Indigenous jobs, not to mention the tens of billions of dollars of export income. Now, every country is different. If you look at Canada and New Zealand, they get less than 10% of their power generation through coal. And in the United Kingdom, they're now moving more and more to nuclear power. In the case of Canada and New Zealand, they have large amounts of hydropower. So every country is different, and we need to take that into account when we look at the energy mixes of particular countries. And Australia has relied for a long time on thermal generation, particularly coal and gas, and that will be the case for a long time into the future, even though renewables are playing an increasingly greater role in our energy mix.
Nevertheless, the Climate Change Performance Index ranks us 57 out of 60 nations, and 2 leading climate change programs have said that there is no way we're going to reach our Paris Climate Agreement targets. How much more do we have to do to really take our place on the world stage?
Well, Beverley, I'd put to you that we have a very proud record of meeting and beating our international targets. We beat our first Kyoto target. We're on track to beat our 2020 target by 224 million tonnes, and we're confident we'll beat our 2030 target. The emissions intensity of the Australian economy is now its lowest in 27 years. And whether it's through the Emissions Reduction Fund, which is one of the world's largest land-based carbon offset markets in the world, which has helped secure more than 180 million tonnes of abatement at a relatively low cost of under $12 a tonne, whether it's through the renewable energy target, which has seen a 5-fold increase in renewable energy investment in 2016 compared to 2015, or whether it's the fact that Australia has been one of the first 10 countries in the world to ratify the Kigali Amendment, which will help phase down the use of HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, in the atmosphere. This is a very positive step that we are taking in many different areas to reduce our emissions and to help our neighbours do it. Not to mention the work that we're doing on climate finance. We've co-chaired the Green Climate Fund, and Australia has committed $1 billion of climate-related finance with a particular focus on those countries in the Pacific. So it's a proud record. I don't care what some of these NGOs have been pushing. The bottom line is Australia has a proud record, and we are making that very clear to all the countries we're engaging with.
What, in your view, is important to achieve here at Bonn, globally?
Well, Well, obviously we need to maintain the momentum that was agreed to at Paris, and that is the discussions here on the rule book, which will provide for the level of transparency and accountability for the country's nationally determined contributions and commitments. And that's critical as we lead in to next year's meeting in Poland. We're very pleased that Fiji was able to chair this meeting. It's a Pacific COP in a way, first time a Pacific nation has done so, and I think they've done an excellent job. And there's been some agreements around agriculture, which is also important to Australia, given half our land mass is involved in agricultural production in one way or another.
How strange has it been not to have the US participating in some of these significant meetings?
Well, having the US at the table is obviously important to the strength of the global commitment to reduce emissions, but also to Australia, because the United States is a good friend and partner. The US is represented at this meeting, and I've had a meeting with them, and they're playing a constructive role. So obviously they've got a stated commitment to pull out of Paris, but at the same time Australia continues to work closely with the United States, recognising they are taking action in a number of different areas to reduce their carbon footprint, and that they are enhancing their technology, their innovation and their efficiency standards.
Josh, before we go, I should ask you, of course, we've had the same-sex marriage results in Australia while you've been away. It's been a resounding yes, as you know, and the mood has really been quite dramatically shifted. Your electorate of Kooyong voted very positively, 74%. You'll be supporting the bill?
I certainly will be, and I had publicly stated my commitment to same-sex marriage, and I'm very pleased that the people of Kooyong have voted emphatically in the way that they have for marriage equality. And now obviously we will debate Dean Smith's bill, and as the Prime Minister said, it's a priority to conclude this issue prior to Christmas, and I think that will be a very significant moment for the Parliament and for the country. And
a welcome distraction from the citizenship debate and saga.
Well, there's been, as you know, politics is never boring in Australia, and that's certainly been the case over the last few months.
Indeed. Josh, great to talk. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be with you, Beverley.